Hey, what's going on, Dr. Heiser? My name is Naja, and I have a couple questions about the supernatural.
Hey Nigel, glad you're here. What's up? So let's get into it. What do you want to know?
First question, is the supernatural real?
This is actually a really good question. Is the supernatural real? It's a little bit too easy to just say, well, of course it's real. Look at the Bible, things like that. But the way I would actually answer this is, what happens if it isn't real? In other words, what if what we experience and know is the only thing that's real? Now, of course, people would say, well, that's possible. Lots of people think that. But you know, a lot of people that you would think would default to that answer don't. And what I mean here is, let's just take scientists. Now, I personally know a lot of scientists, physicists, chemists, geneticists. These are the people you would think that by default would just rule out the supernatural. But they don't. They are unpersuaded that the only thing that's real is the material world. If we start there and we think about, well, you know, there's a lot of intelligent people who would side with the supernatural. That's one thought. And the other thought is God. You know, in all the attempts over all the years to disprove the existence of God, and that's where this whole discussion starts, all of them have failed. So I would start the discussion there. If you're wondering, is the supernatural real? The first thing you really have to default to is God real? And then you're going to look at, well, look at all the attempts to disprove God, and they all fail. So let's do the math. The supernatural really is part of reality. There are things that science and materialism cannot explain, and have not, and will not.
In what way can we see the supernatural in real life?
I get asked this question a good number of times, and I think sometimes my answer sort of surprises people. I'm a believer in the supernatural, so of course there are spectacular things that can happen, things that otherwise defy explanation. But to be honest with you, I think that the supernatural is more visible, more present in the things that are not spectacular. I think Christians in particular make a mistake when they think that God is only present or active in the spectacular. What I like to zero in on is providence. Now, I like movies like It's a Wonderful Life. The movie Signs is one of my favorites for this very reason, that when you get to the end of the movie, everything in the movie mattered for the outcome. You can't see how any of the pieces fit together until you're at the end. And all of our lives are like that. If we look back on our lives, we realize our lives would have been different if I'd have made the right turn instead of the left turn, if I'd have done this instead of that, if I'd have heard that conversation or not. And our lives are made up of a whole series of hundreds, maybe even thousands of these sorts of things. And they steer us in a very particular way. Now, we have a choice to make. Is that all accidental, or is there an intelligence behind it? And in my own story, I could sit here and tell you about how I got this job, how I met my wife, how this or that happened. And I would highlight certain things that, I don't really have proof for that in a modern sense. But there's really no other explanation other than I was guided in very particular ways to very particular ends for very particular purposes. And we can see the fruit of that in life. So when I think about the supernatural, I think about an ever-present, always interested and always active God being present with me, with us as we go throughout our days, waiting to use us and assist us and help us and maybe even rebuke us because He has our best interest in mind. So I think the supernatural is ever present, not just in the spectacular.